Welcome back to Tools and Track. I've spun it around. There you go. Yeah, but there's a reason for that. We're pretty much done in the front and I keep kind of kicking my shins on those radiator mounts. It's just in the way, we've got more to do in the back. I usually work in that area a lot more often. It's on a spinner thing. It was easy to just pivot, so we're now 180 degrees. Right, anyway, that's completely pointless. I don't know why I'm explaining it. Let's move on to more exciting things. In this episode, we have a number of things on our to-do list to get through. Let's start with brakes. Okay, brakes, or more importantly at this stage, brake bleeding, because that's all that's actually left to have the 3-pedal trifecta of a working set of pedals. So what we're going to find here is the bit where I run out of excuses. I constantly bemoan working on old cars that other people have made mistakes on, having to terminate brake fittings that are rusty, corroded, and obviously there's going to be a leak. There won't be any of those excuses because all of this is brand new. So if there's any leaks, it's this dick that's caused them, so hopefully everything's nipped up. The only way to truly know is to give it a go. Also, one slight addendum. These don't have brake pads. Totally slipped my mind, I forgot. Remember, we ordered the ones from the 99 to 2000 or whatever these were meant to be for the skinny brakes. Now, I tried to fit these and if I'm being brutally honest, it's not even worth putting them in because they're completely the wrong profile, don't really touch the disc, and I would just need to strip them back out. However, at the point where I'm going to bleed brakes, what will happen is this piston will fully extend, knock into the disc and quite possibly ruin it. So what I'm going to have to do is remove these back calipers completely, stick a block of wood in there so that the piston doesn't fully extend, bleed all the brake system up and then just leave them off until the pads arrive. Now this will work totally fine in principle as long as the block of wood's the right size, but naturally we're cutting corners here because I don't have pads. Why you would ever need to do this in real life, I don't know, but I need to just get my brake system bled. I'm doing this in a hurry because I want to make sure my system is intact. Obviously I could wait for these, but let's move things along. Lastly, and this is the last footnote I'll put out for a while, I have the temptation to put RBF 600 in here because it's going to be a race car and race brake fluid is high. However, 50% of this will come out into a bottle because I'll have so many airlocks to deal with that it's just going to be a waste. So what I'm actually going to do is fully displace and get a good watertight brake system first with cheap Banger.4, and then we'll do a full displacement with this once we're done so that I'm not wasting brake fluid. Right. Banger brake fluid. I think we'll just check these fittings, the ones that I haven't remembered to check. Make sure they're tight. Now I'm in close. Homebrew.
Brakes bled.
Brakes bled. Well, we think they're bled. So
yeah, they're going to need multiple iterations, I think.
Crucially, the objective here was to make sure I can put fluid in these under pressure and it wouldn't leak. And we have achieved that because there's now fluid in it. I have an amount of pedal fuel. Do you want to demonstrate the pedal travel?
There is some. There is quite a bit, to be honest, still. But
Crucially, your boot isn't hitting the
I think it still needs another cycle, but
another couple of goes.
Crucially, it's there.
Yeah, there are brakes. There is also no fluid, so I am happy with that. I will kind of stipulate that there was fluid.
They only have been a wee week.
I mean, I don't know why, but this is the line for the fronts that went from the master cylinder down to the wee doobada there, which decided to not seal.
We've not had much success recently.
But the weird thing is, right, so the fitting that didn't do the thing was this guy. Focus! Which you can see now is split because I've obviously horsed it to try and get it to go. But there was nothing, I mean, it was a good size of flare. I don't know.
I don't know, I have no idea, but it just seems like
Which is good because the next set of brakes that we need to do is in your Primera, which is going to be
great, So
good start.
Yeah,
I think we'll use Brian's tool rather than mine. Mine's has possibly got issues.
Yeah, Brian's one just seems to work. I don't know.
There's also like a problem, so allow me to demonstrate. Like I had a really good brake flary tool and then somebody broke it. I replaced it with what I thought was exactly the same brake pipe tool. And in principle it is, but it does this weird thing where it just...
It kind of distorts all the pipe.
Yeah,
It?
so these clamp down on them, as you can see. So you screw that together, it clamps the pipe, and you're on a flare in there. But it just seems to like pinch it and leave a wee lip, which is super annoying. But I don't think that would have been why it leaked. But that's not great, that tool. So anyway, it's fixed now, it works. So next up, we're going to chuck the pads in, refit these. When we get a full bifter of RBF 600, I'll get a full flush on the go, and that's the brakes done. So,
yay!
Let's do headlights. All of this, by the way, is more or less low cost. Well, apart from Subaru stuff and Daniel's engines, but I mean the stuff above. Anyway, to quickly recap, whilst I dig all this out, in low cost episodes, I don't know, this one, we made headlights. Well, we made headlight pedestals and promptly filed them because we were not ready for headlights. But as this car's now rotated and not at risk of clouting them, plus we've got all the front suspension on, that's probably a better place to be putting headlights in. So there are, of course, many things I need to come back to because it's me. This is good actually because the more space I clear up there, the more it allows availability for my next project. There's a thought that strikes fear in your heart. Right, good news. Paper. I put these away and forgot that I actually painted them. I was digging them out because I thought we need to put paint in this, but we don't. We can just bolt them on. Clutch, master cylinder lines. Well, that's long and truly dealt with, so we can put that in the bin. Headlights. With painted pedestals and no... Oh, are they though? A wee bit chippy looking. That doesn't mean it's a fish supper, it's just a bit chippity. Interestingly, I have a strange thing with caulking guns that I can never find one. And yeah, every time I pull a box out, there's a caulking gun on it. That's absolutely humped. And it's held together with a Jubilee clip. Bin. I've reached that really brutal point of storage at this stage where I'm just like, if I don't need this, it needs to immediately go away and die. I have two sets of spring compressors in here, and they are both the type that you would not want to use. There's also a rear view mirror. Clutch master cylinder for an MX-5. Random big silicon tube. Needs to go in the big silicon tube pile. And basically everything else in this box can go straight in the f***ing bin. So the reason why I'm doing headlights before nose cone is the nose cone actually kind of covers the headlight mounts. So yeah, need to deal with that. Right, this is easy. Genuinely, the hardest thing about this is going to be finding the bolt that I need to reattach that. This is an M5, so it must be an M6 or an M8. Okay, on we go. Now, I'd never associate myself with being a hoarder, even though it probably looks to everybody who's watching this as I am very much a hoarder, but even I have to kind of admit defeat when, in order to fit these lights, I am tripping over said inlet manifolds from a couple of episodes ago that I had painted up, which is now of no use to anything. And yeah, I don't have the heart to chuck it out, or even sell it, because I might need it. What am I going to need it for? Nothing. When will I establish I need it? 3 years after I put it in the bin. But until that happens, I'm not going to need it. And yet it will remain there for days to come. So that's now headlights off the list. And as it happens, radiator off the list because it was there and I just bolted it on. Also decided to run Nylox on the steering column, the steering rack rather, because that had worked loose. So that all now does the thing.
It's not ideal, your steering rack falling off.
No, we don't really want that. So I've done the thing with jubes. I've got a problem here because obviously, if you see this pipe for the return, or the in, I don't really know which way around it is touching this brake pipe. Now the temptation I'd have is quite easy. We put a wee 2-bolt bracket there that goes up and supports that and holds it off. But as I have been cut out in the arse many times now, I'm going to put the alternator assembly that we made up on here first because I just need to see if that's going to foul in this if I push it any further up. So we'll put a pin in this and come back to it when it's alternator time, which, if I'm being honest, might be quite soon because I want to kind of settle that. So next thing on the list is something else. What we're going to pick. So a few episodes ago, I mean many episodes ago, we got this tank and we made up the whole bracket to hold in the back and that was fine, everything was lovely. And then we jerry-rigged it up to run the engine in this episode and everything was fine and lovely. But there was some issues with that. So I ran a rubber hose from the engine as a return and stuffed it in here, basically to get it to work. Now that's not going to work because it's pretty deadly. So I don't have a return line in here at all. This guy here is in actual fact the line that goes up to here that allows the pump to click off when you fill it up. So we don't want to use that. Similarly, since doing these down here, you'll notice that's where my fuel pipe goes out to go to the pump and it now goes straight into that.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room here.
No, that's probably going to need a 90-degree kink, which is not great when we're talking about feeding fuel to a pump. So the fuel tank is going to need a number of modifications. Similarly, when we were talking about putting this on that version of MX-5 engine, that's the one that does have returnless fuel system. So how that works is you've got the fuel pump, it goes into a regulator and then feeds back to the tank. But that regulator will bleed off 2 bar, 3 bar, whatever to the engine. So the return system stays here and there's just a sort of takeoff that goes to the engine and keeps a constant fuel pressure. That would be quite good to retain. What I did consider was we could cut a hole in the top of this and reintegrate the entire MX-5 tank and fuel sender assembly in here, just shorten the fuel level and all that jazz. And that's still something I'm toying with. I'd quite like to go and buy an aluminium like boss that we could just cut and weld into there. But realistically, we don't really need to do that. All we need to do is replicate externally that internal assembly that used to live in the MX-5. So what I need to do is dig out what I have and see if we can make that work outside the tank.
There's something else to remember here, because this is going to be turboed at some point.
Yeah.
So the thing is with the stock returnless MX-5 system, it'll always just stay at a constant pressure. There's no rise in rate at all. So the idea that I was thinking that it'll give you that as well as being returnless was we do like a wee plate with your pump on it and then we put an aftermarket regulator there. We return that straight back to the tank.
Okay.
And then it means you can then run
a vacuum
slash boost reference to the regulator. So you'll get the kind of best of both. You have a returnless or semi-returnless, because it still returns, but it's returning before it gets to the engine. But it'll also give you your fuel pressure increase when you feed it some boost.
But what all of this means is this tank cannot go back in the car unless it gets butchered and we do some alloy welding. Why aren't we dropping the fuel feed from the bottom? Because the way I've designed this, we can actually put the fuel feed here, so that the pump will live there and the fuel feed can actually come straight down and straight into that, because there's no reason why we shouldn't.
Yeah, we could do that, yeah. Barbs, right? Barbs are good, because a lot of people do this where you just, I'll just weld like a tube on.
Yeah.
Which is like...
Well, let me see if I can find the guy.
I mean, to be honest, that is fine if you get something that's not under any pressure. And
that's a point. This is a carb tank, so none of this was ever actual pressure designed anyway.
Yeah, we won't have any pressure going into the tank really, because all it's doing is it's kind of gravity feeding down into the pump and then the pump onwards.
But bear in mind, the pump back into the tank will have a fair amount of pressure to it.
Yeah, it'll have some,
Barbs. Replacing all of them with barbs, no matter what we do, would be good practice. I've brought you gifts.
Great.
Weldelets.
Fantastic.
So what we're going to do is completely change how this fuel tank works.
Because it doesn't work at the moment.
It kind of doesn't, no. Well, to be fair, even the stuff that it does work with doesn't work well. Little fat bosses for doing welds around and a little outlet. So we are going to mark up where I want this to be now.
And then Tommy's going to weld them.
I'm going to weld them. Well, I'll weld them if you tell me what the bloody hell I'm doing wrong. Because every time I try and weld it now, I just end up making an absolute cod's ear of it. We should probably take that off, shouldn't we? Pop, the good solution here would be to put the outlet at the bottom. So we'll just do that. Yeah. Go with that. And then, do we want to put in another return?
Well, you need a return, don't you?
Well, do we though? Because I thought we were going to return. Well, we should put.
You still need a return to return things.
Where would you like the return?
Well, I don't know. You're not putting the plate and everything for the regulator and everything here.
Yeah, so we put the return there.
Oh yeah. What's happening with this one then? Is that one just getting abandoned? The other one? This one?
Well, that one we can keep because that doesn't really make you do anything. But the one that's sitting down here, I can just plug that.
Or I can just weld it.
Or I can just weld it. Just weld it then. There we go. So I'm almost ready to tick off tank here as well. However, as forever, as soon as I tick one thing off, it brings in more problems. Namely that we're going to have to deal with the fuel supply because there's work here still to be done. But quite a lot done in one episode. Yes, success. In the next one, something else off this list. We're getting very close, so patreon.com/toolsandtrack. That's why there's no ads. You've heard this chat. I'm going to say it again anyway. Go, have a look, hit us up, be awesome. If not, at least like, bell, subscribe and do the share. And until next weekend, drive safe. Do, 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 do. Happy man.
Did we not already test fit this analysis?
I just need to fit them though.